We have a social relationship with Chris. I don't think it's a problem, but I should let the panel know.
Okay.
In order, Andy, you should do that on the record.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening. Calling to order the meeting of the City of Huntington Woods Zoning Board of Appeals. It's April 11th, 2022, just a little bit after 7:30 PM. First item after the call to order is an approval of the agenda, and I'm looking for a motion to remove item 4B from the agenda as this applicant, at the last page of our materials, they request a postponement.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so item 4B is removed from the agenda. Item 3 is the approval of the March 14th, 2022 minutes. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve as presented?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to the appeals for the evening. Matter of an appeal from Michael Gordon on behalf of Chris Gross for a variance from the maximum lot coverage 1.4% over the allowed 30%, section 40-4.03-R1A through R1E, one family districts at 10464 Talbot. Hank, no. Oh,
We're deferring
I
that.
think Andy has something he wants.
go ahead, Andy.
Just so my fellow board members know, my wife and I have a social relationship with Chris. I don't think it affects my ability to be impartial at all, but I just wanted to disclose that and make sure you guys are comfortable with it. If you have any questions, just shoot away.
Get out.
You're good.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, consensus is that Andy should participate.
Yeah, do we need a
Yeah.
motion on it, or?
You should have a motion to allow Andy to participate on
I would move that Andy is fair game, welcome to participate, having disclosed his social relationship.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
that. Thank you.
All right, so,
We're going to defer to Hank for
all right, go ahead, Hank.
the introduction of the project.
So, basically what I'll do is, maybe I should turn the light down just so that you can see a little bit better. Otherwise you don't get the true effect of the blue, right? Okay, so what we're looking at here is an appeal from Michael Gordon on behalf of Chris Gross for a variance from the maximum lot coverage by 1.4% over the allowed 30%. Again, section 40-4.03, R1A through R1E, one family districts at 10464 Talbot. What that means is simply they need some extra square footage in order to complete the project. The square footage comes not on the maximum house size, but it comes on the lot coverage. And there's a couple issues that pertain to this that may help clarify this situation. One is, you can see the house on the left, and then you can see the house on the right. What it is, what it will be. Okay, now note on the right-hand side that they have a porch that goes from the center, roughly the center of the house, to the right side of the elevation as you're looking at it. That's there for a couple things. One is obviously to keep the rain off the porch and off the house, which in Michigan is a fairly prudent thing to want to do. The other thing is to help balance the architectural design of the house, and again, I'll let Mr. Gordon speak to that if he chooses to. So it was originally noticed as 1.4%, but that didn't take into consideration all of the conditions. The house main floor is 1,430 square feet, garage set aside 440, proposed porch I had at 98 square feet, minus the 62.5 front porch allowance by code. That's 1%, leaving 35.5 square feet. 35.5 plus the 440 plus the 1440 is 1906, where 1,875 is allowed. So you have 30.5 square feet, or roughly half of 1%, which is less than what was noticed, and is fine to be less, we just can't be more. Here's the code section. Section 46.04, height area regulations and exceptions, allows for 1% additional for lots under 7,000 square feet, which this is. It'd be 0.62 for the front porch allowed. The front porch, however, is offset by the undersized garage. So if we didn't have the garage set aside and we wanted to put the front porch on, our lot coverage would be okay. The problem is they need both. So the garage size is scheduled, the set aside is 440, while their actual garage size is 371.5, which is one of those car and a half type things or car and 3/4 type things, which I know all too well from having one. So basically, the point of the 440 square feet in the set aside was to ensure that there would always be room for a 2-car garage. So we go to the standards, and 1, the special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, which are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. The lot is a standard lot in the R1D district. The garage, however, is undersized, and the set-aside is what guarantees that the 2-car garage can be built on the site. Thoughts for that is that 1, they're not increasing the footprint with the exception of wanting an additional front porch. And the garage that they have at 371 square feet is undersized, and it would be something where when you take a look at this, what you need to determine is that, look, if somebody came in and bought the house, what is the likelihood that they would want to have a bigger garage? Well, it's probably fair if you ever want to put 2 cars in there, because I can promise you it's not happening in that sidecar garage, in that size garage. So that's one thing. So the other thing is that with a front porch, you take a look at the front porches around and you see the ones that are covered. I mean, that means your mailbox is covered, that means everything is covered and it's a reasonable use. However, you want to take a look at that and weigh that against what you have going on the lot. Now, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the general welfare, which is our second standard. I have had no adverse communications and many favorable ones that are set before you tonight. This comes with the approval of the Planning Commission, subject to the Zoning Board of Appeal approval. So basically what's happened is the Planning Commission has looked at this and said to themselves, it makes sense. Now what you have to do is decide, not only does it make sense, but does it make sense with respect to the zoning ordinance? The third, special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The house, the driveway, the configuration or location pre-existed the gross ownership. The only modifications would be the chimney, the porch on the first floor, and the second floor over the existing foundation. But you have to consider, will they be able to modify the garage? Or will they be able to modify the front porch? If you go back, and I will go back in a minute and relook at that front elevation to show you a couple things. 4, a literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance, and the variance is the minimum necessary. This is a situation where you can look to the spirit of the ordinance and it has to be interpreted. An issue here is the set-aside and its relationship to the lot. The house was maxed out, but the porch is allowed by code to exceed the lot coverage by 1%, leaving the chimney and the set-aside as the points of contention. The chimney falls right into line with the house, so they're not over their maximum house size at all with this. The lot is normal size for the R1D district. The problem that they have is the configuration of the house, which is not changing the footprint of the front of the house where the porch is going. Nothing is changing there. So that's something to consider. And then again in 4, if you approve the variance, you could find that the front porch meets the spirit of the ordinance by intent to encourage front porches, and the design makes this a reasonable and a minimal ask. Your ask really boils down to 30.5 square feet, which is minimal, but it's still over the limit. And then you could feel, if you wanted to vote this way, you could also deny it as insufficient grounds for a dimensional variance. Now I'm going to go back here. Well, I was going to go back there, but I passed it. So if you take a look at the house, and you can see where the indents and everything normally is, and you can see the indentation on the right, what Mr. Gordon has provided for you is a gable over the front door and a roof overhanging there so that it provides some shelter from the elements to the house. Where if you look at that on the left side, you see that the front doorway and everything is exposed. So what they tried to do was to use the same floor plan, of the same footprint rather, over the existing foundation, go up at a roof, and then to protect the weather and the door from the elements. And being on that side of the street, which is also a north side of the street, they tend to get a little bit more of the weather than the south side of the street does. So those are some of the considerations. At this point in time, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure that Mr. Gordon might have something to add here, and Ms. Gross, if they do, happy to entertain any questions you all might have. Other than that, I'll turn the light back.
Why does the north get more adverse weather than the south?
Typically, the south that gets the weather that comes up, and it tends to get the back side of the houses on the south side of the street. And I will tell you that if you take a look in the spring, that most of the houses on the south side of the street, their front lawns melt last. So the north side of the street is where their front lawns melt first, they get more of the weather, but their backyards are more protected. It just seems to be the way it goes in here. Just curious.
I've never heard.
That's a 20-year working here observation.
I guess my question is, the set aside for the garage is still there,
That's correct.
and how under are they on the garage right now? Was it like 70? They're like
Yeah.
370 and the
71
set aside is 440.
440.
So, I mean,
It's roughly a trade-off. But the thing
Well,
is
but-
that you
but it's-
can't
But it's
trade
not
off.
fungible. If the set aside was fungible, we wouldn't be here. It would
That's
just
that's
have it.
correct, but
Okay.
the 1% is only applicable to the front porch. So the set aside has to stay, the front
so
porch
it's not like,
has to
it's not like
stay.
it's an 100 square foot ask.
No, it's like a 30 square foot.
Well, but I'm thinking it's 30 and then you have the 70 square foot set aside.
But the set aside it has to be there, so you've got that, you're like at about 100 square feet total for everything. So if you were to approve this tonight because of the difference in the figures, my suggestion would be is to approve them according to the plan as submitted.
Right, and if the applicant or a future owner of the home wanted to build the garage, they wouldn't have to come back here.
That's
right?
exactly the point.
Right.
That's exactly the point, because what you don't wanna do is you don't wanna grant a variance that gives them an automatic hardship or practical difficulty
Right.
for the next variance.
Well, I'm gonna open it up to public participation. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Or the applicant, sorry. Usually the applicants go first, then Hank goes.
Yeah,
We threw them on the order.
we did a little 3D model of and as Hank, we did an excellent job presenting for me, so I made a mistake. You can see how the house offsets, and the porch we're basically covering, and if there's a concern about lot coverage or impervious surface, the porch without the cover is allowed. We just want to cover it because.
Could you just tilt that?
Yeah.
Thank you, that's good.
So, and back to this weather issue too, is prevailing winds come over the roof and dump the snow on the front of the house. So this is one of those other situations. I'm also a Huntington resident on the north side.
Okay.
I've experienced the weather conditions. And we think it's a modest ask, and again, because of the offset set aside of the garage, the garage is 18 by 20 some feet. And with the addition that had been done previously, to reconfigure that garage would be challenging to get around the addition that's there. So, and again, we're not increasing the footprint of the house, there's one small increase, we're putting a fireplace in the thing. So we think this is it's in the spirit of the ordinance as he referred to, I think it's a good look, and we also went ahead and made some modifications, including shutters, and did some material studies to make everyone satisfied that this is a Huntington Woods house. And if there's anything else you want to add?
I'm Chris, for those of you I don't know. I've lived in Huntington Woods a long time, done several projects, and hoping to start on this project as soon as I can. I'm working with Mike, who lives here in Huntington Woods, because I wanted someone who knew the city and who would make a house that fits in here and preserve as much as we could of the original house, which I think we did. We're just, adding some square footage upstairs so I can fit my kids and have a nice covered front porch. I think the the covered front porch actually adds to the look. And I walked around to a bunch of the neighbors, showed them the plans, got a bunch of signatures, brought some. Everyone seemed to be in favor, as far as I know.
Has there been any adverse communication?
Not that I'm aware of.
Michael, just for clarification, the city has not received any adverse communications on this whatsoever,
We haven't, I was gonna say, unless there's someone from the public here.
unless there's something that I don't know
Right,
about,
right.
yes.
Terry, you know, you're-
No, our feedback would only be positive as needed. Just here, excited for the project. I think that, the spirit of what I've seen, Hank did a great job.
Excuse me,
Hey,
I'm
let's-
sorry,
let's-
for the record, could you,
Let's open it up to public participation.
that's on.
Open,
Good job, Beth.
public participation is open.
I'm Terry Fouts, a Huntington Woods resident. Chris is soon to be my neighbor down the street. I live on the corner of Talbot and Newport.
address please, for the record? If you could step up to the mic, they can't hear it, I apologize.
107054, Talbot, corner of Talbot and Newport. 10705, I've lived in two different. The first address was my first location. Excuse me, starting off great. Thanks.
Next witness.
Hank did a great job. I think, it boils down to about 35 square feet and a covered porch. I think the renderings are beautiful. The spirit of the project's great. I see nothing but improvement when I look at the renderings, and I hope that you'd approve it tonight. Thank you. 10705.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm gonna
I
close.
think she's coming out.
Tell them about that. I'm going to speak on her behalf, too. My name is Katie Kutcher, and full disclosure, I am her sister, and I live on Talbot as well, 10705, and that's my husband. But we moved here 4.5 years ago. My sister's been along just because she lived here and how much she loves this community. This is her third house in Huntington Woods, fourth house. And if you followed my sister and her houses, they're always within the style and taste of Huntington Woods, and she always makes them that much better, and she's a great resident for this community. So the 1%, I hope you guys can say it's a go. So, thank you. Oh, I forgot to, yes, I'm gonna leave that to you.
All right, I'm gonna add one thing. I'm Kimberly Rod. I live on Talbot. She's just my friend.
Address please.
10434 Talbot. And the sun from the heat, we burn our hands on my front door on the silver handle or my code because of how my porch is not covered. So I am so in favor. That would be my first project I did on my house, is to put a cover over my porch. It's faded the paint, terrible, and it's extreme, like my 14-year-old burns her head constantly. And she does nothing but enhance every home she's lived in here, so I hope you pass it. And I want her to move in really fast.
Call me.
Good work.
That's all I got.
Anyone else on public participation? Hearing nothing further, I'm gonna close public participation, open it up to discussion amongst the board.
All I'll say is I walk that street a lot, Talbot. It's a beautiful street, and I really do think that the design that we see is more than consistent with the neighborhood. It will enhance that side of the street. I think the exposed porch actually is not particularly appealing, and I think the design that we've seen tonight will definitely make it actually fit in more with the neighborhood, given the number of upgraded houses there are, particularly on that side of the street. So I see it as de minimis, and I see none of the regulations as being in any way violated in spirit. That's my opinion.
And just to clarify, the garage was sort of useful to understand holistically, the lot cover, but we shouldn't you don't think to the.
You should factor it
to
into the extent
variance
that,
itself.
you should factor it into the extent that your motion, should it be favorable, should include that there be allowed to retain the set aside for the garage as well as the coverage for the porch and the appurtenances as shown on the plan, and you should reference the plan if you were to.
Well, we couldn't take away the set aside if we wanted to. right?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
You can only take away the porch.
But your sample motion is a 0.6% over.
That was because, that's why you wanna modify it to go with the plan, because this was written after the rest of it was, my research continued after this was noticed.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the
1.4%.
0.6 factors in the net size of the current
That's
garage.
exactly correct.
So if you add the 440, it's.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But I'm looking at the front of the house here, it looks like, although the porch does extend a little further out, the majority of the porch is actually in line, if you're looking at the side elevation, the east elevation, with the current front of the house, so the house doesn't really seem to be extending that much. Just a couple feet maybe.
And like they said, if it wasn't covered, there'd be no issue, correct?
That is correct. But yet, the way that they do that, and this is kind of awkward, and I think this is what Michael was alluding to, was that if you're looking at it because of impervious surface, you've got a concrete porch that water's not getting through anyway.
Yep.
So you're putting a roof over it, it's the same thing, only different, and I believe that would be part of their contention with this.
Why is it like that though? Because you would think that the roof would help runoff and all that. I mean, concrete, whatever, but it doesn't quite make sense that the roof would count against them.
Wasn't it anything that has a
The reason
roof?
was that they didn't want like big, any type of big things, but there was two schools of thought with this. When it went through the planning commission, they put in the 1% for front porches. Back going from the early days of architecture, and Mr. Gordon could certainly bear me out on this, all the houses were always designed with bigger front porches, and everything was, they wanted people to be out in front. That's where people congregated. That's where people walked by. You'd go by somebody's house, and they'd be sitting on the front porch, and you would just have a conversation. As time progressed and as people became more internal with this, you started to see more backyard patios, lots of backyard landscaping, and the people retreated from the front porch to the backyard, and you didn't see them. And as a result, what the planning commission's intent was during that, it was to try to draw people to the front yard and also provide for some coverage for doors that may not typically have it. So as a result, that's what you ended up with. Why it may not be the most perfect vehicle in the world, a 1% bonus lot coverage, because the porch itself doesn't count. Because the way that the code is written, it says anything with a roof. So that's how that came into play. So when you have this, it just simply, what you're doing basically with this, should you give favorable motion, is that you're allowing them to understand that, look, okay, I can actually get my 2-car garage, because I can tell you what fits in there. 1 car, a bicycle, and nothing else. It may be a lawnmower. But with a 2-car garage, you have a realistic expectation of fitting 2 or 1 vehicle and more stuff in there. That's just the way that it goes. So that's really the design between the two. And the set aside for the garage was really important, because what you can't do is you can't automatically set somebody up for a variance for the next thing. It makes no sense to
I'm
do.
just curious, is there room behind, like if you knocked this garage down, that you could build a 2-car?
Perhaps, but I'm gonna be all out of money.
Oh, I'm just
Maybe
curious.
the next owner can do that.
Yeah, if you did push, you could push the 2-year.
It's a
Push
fair
the garage
question.
in.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Hank, one of the underlying purposes of the regulations that we're talking about, or ordinances, is to prevent a massive structure that overwhelms the 50 by 120 lot size, and that really, we're not even encroaching upon that concern, because all we're doing is adding that roof to a place where there actually already is a porch. It's just covering it.
That's correct, and also there, the other point that would correspond to that is they're well under the maximum house size.
Right, right. So,
And then it is adding this roof to a porch, providing protection from the elements, which is in line with the original vision of the neighborhood to draw people to the front porch and engage.
It sounds like we're all in the same boat
Yeah.
here. Who's gonna motion? I don't remember what Hank said.
I'll do the honor. I'll do the honor of making a motion to approve the plans as submitted, which would obviously include both the porch and the variance for the garage.
Say it
Well, can I just
Go ahead. The garage
actually restate that the garage doesn't need a variance?
I thought we were approving, what did
No,
I?
'cause the garage is part of the set aside. You have to set aside
got
the
it.
garage.
So
Sorry.
if it'd be okay, perhaps.
You wanna restate it?
The chair would entertain a restatement.
Yeah.
I just said approve it as submitted.
Is it, I mean, is it the modified one is later on, is it, and we, as submitted, or however you want it for the,
What I would suggest to you is that you put it for the plan date, and I have, Michael, help me out here if you could, because I got these two sets of plans. The latest date that I have is 3/3.
As
Is
submitted.
that the same?
The plans dated 3/3.
Is that what you have? Not counting the shutters, I don't care about the shutters.
Okay, yes, that's correct.
The plan submitted to the city dated March 3rd, 2022.
Okay. We'll tag on the date.
Can you just restate it?
I move to approve the plans as submitted pursuant to the plans dated March 3rd, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're good.
We gotta move on. Any other business? Hank?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. I will now open it up to public participation. If there are any members of the public that wish to address the board, please do so. Seeing and hearing none, I'm gonna close public participation and looking for a motion to adjourn. Andy?
Move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, I appreciate it.
Yeah.